Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminolly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today's video is brought to you by the number 2. I'm doing the Think Twice book tag. Okay, this tag was created by AJ Dunn, AJ Dunn Reads and Writes, and Jolene at Bookworm Adventure Girl, and they were kind enough to tag me in it. What I would say is, in common with other tags that the two of them have produced individually in the past, this was a joint tag, their tags are often quite difficult in terms of having quite a lot of questions, and the questions requiring quite a lot of thought. So it did take me a while to come up with answers for all of the prompts. But anyway, I will crack on and give you my answers to the various questions. So the first prompt is Double Vision, a book that features twins. So for this one, I wanted to go with Sister Sister by Andrew Niederman, which is a really trashy horror novel about conjoined twins with psychic powers who are being experimented on and get horrible vengeance on everyone who wrongs them, it was very trashy, but it was quite entertaining. Second one, I've cheated a bit for this one. So the second prompt is Double Talk, a book with two or twice in the title. So I've gone with Jaws 2, the novelisation of the movie by Hank Searles, which I read recently, which was quite entertaining. Next question is Seeing Double, a book with a reflection, shadow or mirror image on the cover. So I've gone with a shadow here. So this is How the Dead Live by Derek Raymond, the third, I think, novel in his Factory series, which is a really disturbing and entertaining mix of kind of gothic horror and detective fiction. It's really quite bonkers at times, but I had a lot of fun with it. Next prompt then is Take Two, two book covers that look similar but are by different authors. So I did have a look through my shelves for this one and I couldn't really find anything. But I did remember an article I saw a while ago online, and I'll put up some pictures to show you, which was about how basically every book about Africa, so every novel set in Africa, has the same cover, which is kind of an acacia tree against a kind of African sunset. And it did occur, it nicely illustrates, I think, that article, the lack of thought that book cover designers sometimes give to books, particularly when they're about subjects that may be less familiar to them. So yeah, clearly they've not given a great deal of thought to these covers. Okay, next prompt then is I Second That, which is a retelling. So for this one, I wanted to go with The Bloody Chamber and Other Stories by Angela Carter, which is a really fantastic collection of short stories, most of which kind of draw on fairy tales and things like that in some way. So there's quite a wide variety of stories in there, from ones which are very funny to ones which are really disturbing, but it's a really fantastic collection if you haven't read it. Next prompt then, Two can play at that game, a character who plays two roles or has an alter ego. So I thought I'd go with American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis for this one, which is a book I haven't read for ages. I do need to reread this. But yes, was very struck by the fact that the character, the main character in this lives two very different lives, although they do kind of clash into each other at times. Okay, next question. It Takes Two, a duology. I struggled with this one as well. I really struggled to think of a duology I'd read. And then I did remember one, which was two books by Justina Ireland, Dread Nation and The Deathless Divide, which are set in, when are they set? They're set just after the Civil War, so that sort of period in America. But the Civil War dead have risen again as zombies. And black children are trained to be like protectors for white families, so to fight off the zombies. And it's about one young teenage girl and her kind of experiences. So they're YA, but they're really entertaining, quite good kind of horror stuff, lots of action and lots of kind of musings on race in the US as well. So a very interesting couple of books. Next one then, On the Double, a book told in two timelines. So I could think of so many examples for this because it seems to be a really common trope nowadays. And I say this as someone who's written two books. So I've written two novels, both of which use the dual timeline thing. I think it's a really easy way to kind of build tension in a book and keep a book interesting by flip-flopping between those two timelines. So I think it's really overused, and I confess that when I did it in my books, I did it because I knew that it was it's kind of a trick to keep the reader interested. Anyway, the last book I read that used that trick was Last Time I Lied by Riley Sagar, which is about a young woman who goes to work at this summer camp where, like 15 years previously, she'd visited it as a teenage girl, and terrible things happened in the past and terrible things happen again. But yeah, it very much uses that kind of flip-flopping timeline thing to build tension and keep the reader interested. Okay, next question. A perfect pair. The last 2 books you gave 5 stars to. So these are both ones I've read really recently. I've read a lot of really good books recently. So the 2 I recently gave 5 stars to were Cujo by Stephen King, which was a reread for me, which was even better than I remembered it being. I remembered it being suspenseful, but it's just great. It's so good. He builds suspense so fantastically well. In that book, it's kind of really shocking at times, and even when he's doing the kind of less interesting bits, he keeps you interested. I thought it was a fantastic book. And the other one is Never Let Me Go by Kazuru Ishiguro, which was a fantastic kind of science fiction novel, but incredibly thoughtful, really deep, some really interesting commentary on kind of what is humanity and things like that. So yeah, a fantastic book. Okay, next question is 2 for the show, a book that has been adapted to film 2 or more times. So I thought I would go for this one with Psycho by Robert Bloch, which again I read quite recently and really enjoyed. So obviously very famously filmed in the 60s by Hitchcock, and then later in the late 90s Gus Van Sant made I think it was pretty much a shot-for-shot remake of the Hitchcock film. So I don't know if that really counts as 2 adaptations of the same book, given that it was basically the same film twice. But I thought I'd go with Psycho anyway because it's really good. Next question then. Two's Company, a book with 2 or more authors or a translated fiction book. So for this one, I wanted to go with Blood Red Rivers by Jean-Christophe Granger, which is a fantastic French thriller that mixes kind of adventure type stuff, so it's set in the mountains, with a serial killer plot. It's incredibly gripping. I really love it, and it's a book you don't see talked about enough in my opinion. And then the final question is, double take, recommend 2 books you think would pair well together and tell us why. Again, this was a question I was struggling with, and then I was thinking about the book I'm reading at the moment, which is the Iliad by Homer, which is a classic story of war, and interesting because it's quite well balanced. You don't feel like either the Greeks or the Trojans are supposed to be the heroes. You get to see both sides of the story. And it reminded me of the book The Killer Angels by Michael Shara, which is a book, a novel about the American Civil War, but which very much shows both sides of the story. It's about one particular battle, I forget now which one, but the build up to one particular battle in the war. And you get to see, both the Yankee and the Confederate side of things. So yeah, another fantastic novel about war. Okay, time for me to tag some people. And I don't think any of these people have done the tag yet, but apologies if you have. So I'm going to tag James Holder, The Bookish Knitter, Anne Novella, and Roy at A Yard of Random Books. Okay, time for a random book for the shelves. This one is a book that got quite a lot of attention when it came out a while ago, and I really enjoyed The Power by Naomi Alderman, which is a book about a future where women suddenly get the power to kill people just by touching them, and it's an interesting, very interesting take on kind of gender politics and things like that, and a really good thriller as well. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with this. So do let me know in the comments what your answers to the questions in the tag would have been. And as always, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff. And I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.